Welcome to the Centric Behavioral Health Podcast, where we talk all things mental health and substance abuse. If you or a loved one is struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues, please call our caring team now at 866-271-8480. Again, that number is 866-271-8480. To start your healing journey today, this podcast shares recovery journeys and mental health discussions. If you find this content uncomfortable, please feel free to click away and take a breather. Our goal is to share our experiences and let you know that you are not alone. Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is where we talk all things mental health and substance abuse. My name is Danny, and I'm here with
Sasha. I'm one of the therapists here at Rain Residential.
Awesome. Welcome to the podcast today. So today's theming is basically inside the mind, all about anxiety, trauma, and why it's okay to not be okay. So my first question to you is it okay to not be okay?
It's always okay not to be okay because we're human beings. No one's ever okay. Even as a therapist, I'm not always okay. So definitely it's okay not to be okay.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And then moments like when you're not okay, like having anxiety. So what is anxiety really like? Like, how would you explain it to someone who thinks they're just either stressed or just overreacting?
Anxiety can look very different for anybody because sometimes anxiety, you can feel it in your chest. Sometimes you feel it just in your mind with constant thoughts and stuff like that. So I don't really think there's an exact way to state how anxiety looks like, but I guess that just depends on the person. But definitely anxiety can stem from a lot of stressors. And then there's times where it can get really out of control and then you have your panic attacks, which is now we can kind of get more into details of that because panic attacks, you're definitely going to feel like it in your chest. You're going to be sweating. You're going to feel like you can't breathe, but everything's okay. But it's just your mind kind of going into like a frantic state. So, yeah.
Anxiety and franticness. Yeah. And I feel like I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah.
For sure. I've had anxiety for a while. So
yes.
It is kind of difficult. I think like understanding like the level of franticness, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I guess as just a normal human being.
Yeah.
Coming from, oh, everything is fine, don't have to worry about nothing, and then it turns into everything is falling apart.
Yeah. Just literally think of like Chicken Little and the sky is falling. That's how a panic attack would be when you're like into that state. And that's when you know like your anxiety is like at a 10. That's why we tell a lot of clients, like, be honest with how you feel. Because sometimes just because maybe, you may be thinking a lot or you get that heaviness in your chest or you're kind of shaky, you're like, okay, my anxiety is a 10. But a 10 is like, okay, we're getting into like a panic attack right now. So that's how we can kind of tell the difference to help clients gauge where they're at today. So that's good.
Yeah. I think my next question would be, what are some of the physical signs that people would often miss when they're having like an anxiety, panic, or even just like the come up to it?
I guess physical. I can state from personal experience, like kind of feels like you're going into like a crowd with 10,000 people and you're just sweating, you're shaking, you feel like sometimes you may want to pass out a little bit and you can't really get control back of your body, but you kind of have to like walk yourself through it in your head to know that like everything is okay and to kind of get into a calm, still moment. Or you can have ones where it feels like you're just like your heart is going like an 808.
A million
I've
miles
had that
a minute
before. Yeah. And like you kind of feel like it's like burning sensation in your arms. Mm-hmm. And it kind of just feels like everything in your body's tightening and closing in and you kind of feel trapped. But, again, then everything's okay. Or you can have the ones where you're throwing up, and uncontrollably and stuff like that. And yeah, I would say most of those, it can go like, maybe mild is going into a stage, like I said, comparing it to seeing 10,000 people. Because after a while, you kind of can get calm in the sense. But then the ones where you're really like out of control, vomiting, throwing up, feeling those burning sensations, feeling like you're just like closing in and your chest is like trapped. Now that's kind of like a lot severe, which is then you have like out of 10 anxiety. Yeah.
I feel like, for speaking for myself, I've definitely been on all spectrums of the anxiety scale. Like, what are some of the therapeutic techniques that you use with clients dealing with anxiety?
Well, breath work is always the number one. And a lot of times people find that to work, or just kind of like helping clients like walk through, kind of checking their surroundings to bring themselves back to their present self and having more of that awareness, I think is very beneficial too. And also just sometimes, of course, the cold, feeling like cold things. One of my things, like, okay, like, of course, like if you're in a public place, you can't do this. But if you're at home, taking a very, very cold shower, it's like it freezes everything in your body for a second and you're like that, and then you can just like breathe. I feel like that also is very helpful. I've done that myself, especially like at home and stuff when I've had those like really, really bad anxiety attacks where I feel like my chest and everything closing in. But if you're just like in the moment, talking to somebody, breathing, writing it all out, whatever, because mainly it's just like everything is just inside. So, and it's just keeping you trapped from being able to like be in the present moment. That's how I look at anxiety. But yeah, those are some helpful techniques.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because I've never used the cold. I know that typically when I have when I'm out and I have social anxiety, it's like I really have to just reach out to a friend and be like, hey,
that
like,
too.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing.
That's definitely good.
But the cold shower is pretty interesting.
Yes, like when you're home, or something like that, or on a vacation or something, or touching cold items, because it kind of just like brings you back to where you're at, so you're not feeling so much stuff inside.
Bringing you right into the moment.
Yeah, into like the present moment, or bringing you back to awareness. Because a lot of times with anxiety, like I will say, like one thing for a personal experience, I've overthinked myself to the point where now it's coming physical. So like what triggers my anxiety is my ruminating thoughts, where I will literally sit there and I'm just thinking of my mind is on a treadmill, thinking of every possible solution, direction, what could have done, what couldn't have been done, what could have been said, especially arguments. Like definitely like that, as everybody has had a lot more with maybe like friendships or intimate relationships, I would say, which we've all been there. And I've had it to the point where I was thinking so much that my body started shaking. I could not relax. I had to like walk. I had to sit down. I had to like get up again. Then I had to drink water. The water wasn't working. Cold, but splashing the cold water on my face, the cold showers. Then I got the tightness in my chest. I can hear my heartbeat going. And then that's when I start throwing up. Like, yeah. So I will say, like, that's why the power of the mind is also like amazing, but all of it is you're in control. Like your mind is in control of everything. And I say that to say this, because that's why you have to talk yourself through it. Like keep talking yourself through it, letting, like telling yourself it's okay. Like be your own little therapist inside your head, basically. So that way you don't go into something like that bad.
Exactly. I mean, like I do feel the same way. I had the same experience, not the throwing up. I think that's a lot, but at the same time, it's like, like the ruminating thoughts and negative thoughts that really like flow through. And I think that's just, I mean, I think like opening up about it and being like, that's so normalized.
Yeah, it is.
So, it does help like a little bit, like, having these kind of conversations, being like, oh, like you do it too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like, no, hey,
we all do it. Yeah. No, we all do it.
Yeah.
But those ruminating thoughts, like that's where you have to find, control in that. And that's why we always emphasize a lot on journaling, because it's almost like you're having that conversation with yourself and you're accepting what's going on. But in your head, you're it's just like letting the thoughts continue, and fleeting thoughts that you yourself don't understand or have the answer to. And sometimes in journaling, you start to make peace and accept what's going on. That's why I say it's a very helpful tool. Honestly, anything with coping, it's simple things that actually make better or greater changes, I guess you could say. Yeah.
At what point with like anxiety treatment would someone need to reach out for, treatment? Like someone like you, like a therapist, or even just like a facility like Rain, where you handle a lot of mental health patients.
I would say when it's kind of getting some of those symptoms I stated earlier that I myself also went through when I actually had to go to the hospital. But if you're constantly having situations like that and you're constantly, it's like just so uncontrollable where it's messing with your day to day functioning, like you can't even function in normal life anymore. And like you kind of like, I guess like, what is the word? Forget to do things, avoid to doing things, avoid going places. That's when it's like, okay, you need to come, you need to get the help, and we need to like, and that's when you use the CBT for things that like cognitive behavioral therapy, rewiring the brain, and all that, so we can change some experiences that people may be going through. So yeah, I would say.
Very nice. Um, let's see. I'm just like bringing into because I have like personal. I have some professional, like simple ones, and then I also have some like personal questions. By all means, if it gets too like,
No, I'm ready to.
I'm the editor anyway, so I'm here like
this is.
I think we're yeah. I think we're good now. Okay, so my next question to you is basically could you walk us through how trauma affects the brain and the body?
That's kind of not really a hard one, but that's a good one. So,
Dun, dun, dun.
how trauma affects what the mind and the body? I think that okay, from where people explain it, trauma because when you see something, your mind is kind of like already trying to figure out the response, but it affects the body because certain like responses you get, like how can I explain it in this sense? I'm trying to explain it the best way possible because I have it all in my head, but I have to do it right.
By all means,
So-
take your time with this question.
Basically, okay, so you experience something. Let's just car accident is probably the best thing. I always use that as an example. Like when you're in a car accident and then your mind is also reacting, but your body's also reacting physically. So sometimes after the accident when you're driving, why a lot of people have PTSD is because if they hear like a loud noise or maybe when they're driving, they start to feel it physically. I can say that from experience because I've gotten into an accident like 2 years ago that was really, really bad. And I was like, I would drive and for some reason, it's like my mind will just like repeat the accident while driving and I'll repeat the boom and I'll feel like the boom is going to happen again. And like sometimes like so a car will pass me really fast and then like my heart sinks. So I guess the example is the best way for me to explain how it affects both mind and body. And that goes with honestly a lot of diagnosis. And that's when you asked earlier, like, how do you know that you need actually mental health treatment is when the symptoms are starting to become very physical, where the fact, again, some people with trauma, they can't even function daily because it's like they're like every 5 seconds, they feel like they're in that moment again. So the best way to work through trauma, like you can do, of course, EMDR, which is great because it takes you back to that moment, and I don't know that much about EMDR. I would love to get specialized and certified in that one day. But I think from how I see it done, it's like you're going back in that moment, but changing your response to it, And then you also have like trauma focused CBT, which is kind of like this like reframing, challenging the thoughts of that moment, but it's more like reframing and stuff like that of that experience and a lot of like processing until you kind of can figure out your ways to cope through it with certain traumas. I think the car accident is the best physical one, but then you have emotional trauma. Now, emotional trauma is the hardest one, I feel like, for a lot of people to get through because those are scars that cannot be healed. And it's kind of like as you go through life, then either it might change for the better with different things you surround yourself with, or people stay trapped into where that trauma led them to.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think I feel like the meme, like
emotional damage.
Yeah,
truly.
that one is very rough, I feel like, for most people to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like walking through, and you did mention CBT and EDMR. Could you walk me through kind of, so do you typically use more CBT in your therapy, in your like
like trauma focus, a lot of processing, cognitive processing, of course, a lot of that because you kind of have to let it out, talk through it a lot more, especially with emotional traumas, and also like when people are processing a lot of their trauma, helping them with a lot of facing it too. So like one exercise I love is empty chair. So you're confronting certain traumas, if it's emotional, like with an abuser, or like, in relationships or family, whatever the case is, you're kind of really like putting yourself in that moment, so that way you can heal for yourself, because you're most likely never going to confront that situation to bring yourself the real closure you need. So it's about finding that closure within yourself. So I think that's very helpful. And writing goodbye letters, stuff like that, going back in time, writing how you felt in that moment, especially for a lot of like victims who've probably been sexually abused or stuff like that. And, going back into that moment and kind of talking it out and thoroughly, and starting to like kind of let go of that person that went through that helps, or confronting that person as well. It's like a 2-part thing. Yeah. Yeah. The best way to explain it.
No, you explained it really well, because I think that like with having sometimes it's like we throw trauma out there, like I've had trauma,
Yeah.
and I don't want it. I mean, being just like a keyword phrase that people say like as a social media kind of a thing, but it is real. A lot of people do go through trauma.
Yeah.
And then like just kind of understanding it. I mean, so I have another question here where it's like, is there a difference between trauma and PTSD?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. That's actually a really good question, because I never thought about it like that. I guess, I don't know. When I think of PTSD, it just reminds me of more like physical things, like things that happened to you, like if you got shot, or you were in a war, or if you were in a car accident, or stuff like that. But I don't think that it only relates to that, because even in the DSM-5, like let's say you went through certain traumas, it's all classified under post-traumatic stress disorder. So they're the same. Yeah.
And like it's not like I have to go through a war to experience that.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
I like how you mentioned the emotional trauma as well, because I feel like there are some people, that maybe your childhood wasn't, it was great, but then there were certain aspects of it where like, things could have been different this way.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's why I bring up emotional and like psychological trauma, because these are traumas that don't necessarily get looked at or feel the need to, that people need to come and get help for. And like I remember during like in one job they call it big T's and little T's, but whatever's trauma to you is classified as trauma. So it doesn't mean you have to go through this huge life-changing event that, for you to be okay, I have trauma. Like, no. It could be maybe you went in a relationship and the person put you down and made you feel insecure. That's trauma. You want to know why? Because then you go into the next relationship and you have trust issues. You're guarded. You don't really know how to feel the love properly. But that's because it was what you've learned from your last relationship. So that's considered trauma. That's that emotional abuse that sticks with you forever. That goes with that baggage. Emotional scars. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't really get healed for a long time, because even let's say you get into a great relationship and that person's giving you all the love in the world, you still don't know how to adjust to it or recognize it or accept it because of your last being the person that basically put you down the entire time. So yeah, that's how the best way to explain emotional trauma.
Just excuse my French, but it's a bitch.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely, and it sucks.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so how do you help clients to feel like they're safe, even though their trauma is in the past? Because then understanding like someone coming in with trauma, are they like having the anxiety and depression showing right away? Does trauma like kind of show up with like your the regular mental illnesses, and then once you pull back those like onion layers, you start to see that's where it's coming from?
Honestly, I think it can go either way, because trauma, just like people with depression, you can be like a high functioning person with depression. There's always still something missing, and you can still go to work, function day to day, but when you come home, it's like you still have something within you that keeps you like sunken. I like to describe depression as just a sunken place. But the same thing with trauma, because like I have trauma, but I come in here and I help people work through it. But I realized my trauma didn't come out with just like, okay, like I have this trauma and I'm weighing the baggage on my shoulder, sometimes it would come in responses, like to certain things that people would do. Like someone could say something to me and I'm just like responding that way. And I realize it takes me back in my mind to a time where I had to respond, like, or go back into that fighter mode. And like, basically like, so trauma could be triggered in so many different instances without you recognizing it. And sometimes that's when people often realize, oh wait, I do have trauma. Like, to share a story, one of my clients that I've had have told me like sometimes like they were basically sexually abused by their stepfather. And then they realize, and I think as they got older, I think this client's like in their late 20s now, they start, in certain instances, they start to remember certain things. Like one time she was being intimate with one of her partners and she just started screaming and yelling at the person's name and didn't realize why. And she's like, oh, like I have to deal with this because I thought that it wasn't, affecting me as much, but I realized that I can't even be intimate with somebody unless I'm using substances because it numbs them and their mind is away from their past traumatic experiences. But sober, and that one little touch or that one little word or whatever resurfaces the trauma immediately. So it can go either way. To answer that question, if it answered it, I don't know.
No, I think you did a really good job with that one.
So,
like I think, sorry, I think that like, does time really heal trauma?
That's a good one. No, it doesn't unless you work through it. Because even me, I can say I have had childhood experiences and like, okay, little backstory, like I've come from a toxic household. So a lot of times it's yelling, fighting and all that. And I realize I bring sometimes that toxicity in relationships, and I'm used to just get like yelling back, there's no constructive conversation where you can work through it and express how you feel and that's it. No. And I realized that in my mid-20s, like now, where I'm like, oh, I'm still responding like how I was as a child because that's what I was taught and my responses need to change. And so time does not heal nothing unless you work through it.
That's 100% agree. Mm-hmm. Like I know myself, I've gone through some trauma with a past relationship a couple years ago.
Oh.
And, leaving that person, it was a narcissist.
There we go. So, that's emotional abuse, guys.
Just like narcissistic abuse.
Emotional trauma.
Really opening it up here. But, I used to be that person where it's like, no, like, I'm just going to move on. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to be single. I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to do me, go to the gym, eat healthy, do everything right. And then what surprised me and what taught me, because even myself, I'm breaking stigmas as well here with mental health, is that my body did start to do these things, and I started to think, well, what is going on? It starts with like sleep. I don't sleep that well. It starts with like these anxieties, like I can't be around certain men, or I understand a certain attitude, and I start to freeze up a little bit. So
literally, that's exactly what I was stating. Perfect example.
And it took me a little while because I really wanted to. I have my same therapist that helped me when I left that relationship, but for a long time I was doing a lot of like holistic stuff. So it was like journaling and breath work, and even just being in front of the mirror and like doing affirmations. So in a way it did really help me a lot with like my self-esteem, but there was an aspect to my physical health where I thought, you know what, I need medication.
Sometimes that can happen. But you see, it's those little things that created bigger changes for you to know that you are worth it. So what you did is you changed your outlook on how that person actually made you look. You went in back and changed the way how you're supposed to feel. So that's why those positive affirmations also are very important. And sometimes, like a lot of times with people with emotional trauma, like I always like to have them write down any negative thing that was said to them by whoever. And on a day-to-day, they go in the mirror and they reframe that. So instead of like, if someone was like, you're ugly, like you go in and you kind of just like, no, like I'm beautiful. Like you just change it. And sometimes reframing doesn't also mean that sometimes some things that people said weren't 100% true, but it doesn't mean that that's really who you were. So if someone was like, because you maybe doesn't have a job, and the person's like, oh, you're not worthy. No, you reframe it by like, okay, like I am worthy, but I do need a job right now, but that the job doesn't determine my worth. Perfect. You're not going too positive, but you're also taking yourself out of that negative thought process as well. So
I love
those are
that,
helps.
actually.
Yeah.
No, I think for a while I was always thinking like, why did I let him say these kind of things to me? He said some really nasty things that they still kind of stick.
Of course.
And I like that the whole reframing thing, because I think that it really flips in. It's like he did say those words. These things did happen.
Yeah.
Are they acknowledging it? Because for a while I was also just ignoring it. And I think that a lot of people also, like, with trauma or anxiety or even just mental health in general, we're always just trying to keep moving forward. We're always just trying to keep, keep face, keep that mask on. No one needs to know what's going on. But, when you start having these kind of conversations, it goes, no, like, I'm not feeling okay right now.
Exactly.
And that's okay.
It is. It's okay. And things resurface randomly. Like, I remember, I think, like, a couple of days ago, like, I was just driving in the car, and I just started thinking of something that, like, my mom said to me a while. Like, this was probably, like, I was probably, like, 14. And I didn't even know where this came from. And I was like, dang, like, I really did not like how I felt like she was trying to put me down in that moment. And you see, words stick. Feelings stick. Those things that people say to you when you had that moment of embarrassment, even as a child. And I mean, I tell myself now, I'm like, okay, like, why are you worried about that, Sasha, at 14? Like, are you serious? Why are you? But back then, I wouldn't be able to be like, oh, I don't really like how you said that in front of family. Like, you kind of put me down. But now, I said that in my head and I felt good about it. I was like, I really did not like that. Like, that person really put me down and that was not cool. But it's like, I just kind of reassured myself. Sometimes it's yourself that gives you the closure for you to let go of certain things that's happened in your past. So, yeah.
Is it true that, with trauma, it's kind of like you got to heal that, like, inner child of yours, or heal your inner teenager and then kind of build up from there? I've heard things like that, but what's your take on that?
I think it all depends on where your trauma started and stems from. Because, okay, like, how do I explain it? Sometimes people that go into substance use, it comes from childhood, and they just continue on from there. And then sometimes they go and create more trauma on top of themselves that they've already been dealt with. Because oftentimes when I get a lot of clients, especially with addiction that use due to traumatic experiences, the trauma that they go on through during their usage, it's like nothing to them. But they always go back to that moment when they were 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or whoever gave them their first drug, and then it kind of just took off from there. So I definitely think in certain instances, it does start from your childhood, the inner child. And I always ask this, especially when I'm working like with someone that's healing inner child, is what's something as a child that you needed to hear or wanted that you didn't get? And whenever they answer it, then that's where we start with. So some might say, I wanted a hug. So then we start with, okay, how are we going to love yourself? How are you going to give yourself that hug since you didn't get it back then? Validation. Then we're going to work on validating yourself a lot. Like, we're going to keep doing it until it starts to register in your brain and you feel it and you feel positive and all that about yourself again. So it kind of just starts with there. You want to go back to that right moment when it all started. Because some trauma can be like long lasting. Like, my trauma, I probably have like 10 years of it, but not all of it was horrible. Some was good, but then there's those moments where it was really bad. So I'm not going to say I have a 10-year history of trauma. No, but there's a lot of core moments that happened where I felt like, okay, that really affected me, even as an adult.
Hot take. Do you think, and I'm not saying this in respect, not in a disrespectful way, but I think that, does trauma make someone rather more funny or have character? I don't know. I think so. I feel like it's somewhat of a coping mechanism for myself, because there are times where I'm like, I joke around about certain things and I'm like, clearly that's coming from my trauma. But I can say it because it's funny to me and the group that I'm in.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I use a lot of dark humor, and me and all my siblings do. It helps you get through it. Yeah. Like, sometimes I'll laugh about things and then, like, my friends will just look like, oh, wow. Like, they're kind of like, and I'm just here cracking up. Like, it's okay, guys. You can laugh too. Like, it's fine. So, yeah, I think it kind of gives you a little more character.
Yeah, I think that sometimes like I'll be in my head, like even in my car, like I'll start thinking of something and then but like I crack a joke and then it just suddenly like it kind of like lessens the pressure of
It
what it
does.
was. Because just simply saying like I have trauma
Yeah.
sometimes can lay sometimes it has a very negative connotation to
It
a lot of
does.
that, and it's difficult to have those kind of conversations, or it's difficult to say to
Yeah.
certain people who may be more sensitive.
Yeah.
But I
It's true.
think that maybe even using a little humor could.
It is. And honestly, a lot of times people say like humor, you're deflecting and all that. I don't think that. I think as long as you're working through it, however you want to get through it, and whatever makes you able to cope through what you went through is okay. There's no right or wrong way to heal or cope with your own issues. Like, it's your issues. So
You go on your own personal journey.
yeah,
You do your own
exactly. Definitely.
So, why did you become a therapist? Was there a specific moment where you're like, I really want to help others like this way?
I really don't know how I landed the role as a therapist, but I always knew I was going to do something within psychology, for sure. Like, I've done like all the classes and stuff since high school. I wanted to be a neurologist, then I wanted to be a neuropsychologist. Schooling, too much for that. But I kind of like through work experiences and stuff, I kind of landed in the role of a therapist by getting a job at a substance abuse treatment center a couple years back. And from then I really liked it. But I always had like a mission to kind of be someone that just gave a little bit extra care from what, not because in my past experiences with family, I felt like if somebody cared just a little bit and wasn't just writing the scripts or just couldn't be bothered and saw the person for 5 minutes but didn't care to know what they went through, then a lot would have probably changed in my life. So I guess you could say that like I wanted to kind of somewhat make a difference, and I realized I can't make a difference in everyone's lives, but hopefully to some people, where that when they're going back to their families, it's not like they have to continue with that constant battle, if that makes sense.
No, it's wonderful. Like, I think that, I mean, you guys are literally like, not all superheroes wear capes.
Exactly.
And I think that's a very valid, it's like a very, it's a good career to get into. I mean, just talking and really helping other people, or like not even knowing your words can also heal people.
Yeah. And I found that to be like, I really didn't know how I was going to be in this. But if I can say, like, I do think my higher power also plays a role in all of this, in my life and my journey and what I went through. So I do think me healing others in a sense, or helping, not healing because I'm not a healer, but helping in a sense, I will not take credit.
Emotional healer, I think.
For me to help people, it's also helped me in a sense. So it's like, even though I'm just having simple conversations, it's also helped me realize, that I'm not alone in a lot that I've went through in my life too. So
yeah. I mean, like just sitting here, I'm like, I can totally relate to a lot of the things that you said.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, family can be crazy.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that. And then, relationships and how like kind of carries out. So I'm completely like understandable. And just having like the amount of empathy to be like, you know what, I'm here with you, I understand you.
I think that's why I went through a lot of what I went through, because I would say like the one thing I've always heard what makes me a good therapist, which I'm not saying I'm the best therapist, I don't think so. I don't think I'm the best therapist ever. But a lot of times, a lot of clients have appreciated how I can relate and how I brought myself down to like what they're feeling to help them understand that it's okay for you to process this with me. And like I've cried with clients just so that way they felt okay to express emotions. Like I've done some beyond things, not in that way, but to make them not feel like, okay, like weird or awkward to talk about what they've went through. And that's what a lot of people want. And you're not like sheltering them or putting too much comfort into like what their situation, but you're just kind of showing them it's okay to talk about it. Now let's work through it and get through this together. Because it is definitely a collaborative process.
Yeah, so you absolutely, like, you're creating that safe space for them, so then they can hold that, that emotion, trauma, you can like, unravel it together.
Especially trauma.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about that.
What are we talking about?
I mean, crap, I've never wanted to talk about it either.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep moving again.
Yeah.
Keep moving, keep grooving. We're all good, all positive.
Exactly. So, and for a long time, I could understand why people do that, because I did it myself. And you know, you just like, and not everything people rely on substances. It could be friends, it could be people, you know, where you're just constantly trying to escape, and then you just kind of just faces you back again. You're like, all right, gotta face it.
Do you think that there's a like too much positivity out there sometimes on social media?
Yeah, definitely, 100%, because life is not about rainbows. And I do think, like, okay, no offense to anybody, no disrespect, but I don't like the super positivity accounts. Like, okay, like, oh, I just crashed my car, but don't worry, today's a great day.
Yeah,
like,
everything's gonna be okay. Don't
like,
worry.
it's all right. No, I think everybody, you know, when you're going through something, you have to just accept it, you know, and allow yourself to feel what you feel in that moment. But it's about how you continue on is, I guess you could say, the proper way to deal with it. Like, if you get into a breakup, don't, okay, I'm not sad. Life is great. I'm just going to go to the gym, like you said, to look at myself. I'm the best, like, gorgeous. Like, okay, that's good. Yeah, ooh la la.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, all masking is only going to make you feel worse, because you're kind of basically telling yourself you want to be something so bad that you're not. And you're like, there's no trick behind it. So you just have to accept it for what it is, cry it out for a couple days, and then stand up and be like, we're going to deal with this. And even when you're dealing with it, you're going to cry some more again. But at least you're like, your way of processing is going to be like a whole circle of emotions. It's not just, I feel sad today. Okay, tomorrow I'm really happy, and we're just going to move on, create the rainbow. Life is great. No. Because one day you're going to fall.
For sure. That was my experience for a little while. Like, I just like left and everything was, you know, I'm gonna be better for myself and everything. But then I found myself like crying in my car so many times. Like, I'm very much like I don't want to show face of that. I don't like showing people my emotional, like, sensitive side. But I feel like over time it has helped me. Not like I'm gonna actively cry in front of people.
Yeah.
But it has been, I think working with my therapist has been helpful, because it's like just understanding that we all cry. Like, we can have emotions, and sometimes people cry in front of other people, and it's okay.
You have to cry it out.
Yeah.
In whatever place you feel comfortable with your therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel comfortable doing that at home, because my family is very like, we don't talk about these kind of things. We're very hush hush. Like, everything's fine.
Yeah. I totally understand that, especially if it's someone they didn't even really want you to date in the first place. Oh gosh. Forget about it.
Story of my life.
Forget about it. So yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. So it is difficult, especially when coming from those kind of houses where it's like we don't openly express feeling. We don't openly talk about these kind of things.
Yeah.
Your feelings are not validated in the moment. Yeah. That's kind of what I've gone through. And it's not just relationships. It was like a myriad of different other things that, you know, unfortunately, that's just how I've been dealing with it. So, like, crying in cars, crying in little secret little areas at night, you know, in the shower, all these kind of things. So, but yeah, I think over time it's definitely helped me understand that, hell, like, even if I see like a puppy on the street, I'm crying.
Oh yeah, it's okay. So, and that means you have a lot to let out.
Yeah, like, I'm just like, no, like, there's moments, and you know, like, and it's fine, and it doesn't matter, like, and also, like, it doesn't matter what gender you are. So it's like, if you're a man, woman, they, non-binary, I feel like everybody should just be able to just let it out.
Yeah,
like, there should never be that kind of stigma.
Of course.
Yeah,
I agree. There should not be at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think on a little bit more positive question, what's been the most rewarding part of your work so far?
Being part of someone's journey and honestly seeing the difference. And I would say, like, sometimes it's like, okay, how do you see a difference in someone with 30 days? You do, definitely. Even if they don't see it themselves or feel it, I see it. And as a therapist, you're constantly assessing, constantly watching. And you can just tell, like, when someone comes in for the first week, when they look like someone hit them with a train, And then by like second week, they're actually like taking care of themselves, looking a lot brighter, like their laughter, their joy seems to come a little bit back to their eyes, their face, whatever's going on. And I would say that that's probably the most rewarding part of my job. And I love that. I love seeing when a client is reaching their goals, and when I'm like, wow, like, you know what, you did it, and being able to say that, and they're not like putting themselves down anymore, and they're really ready to start that change in their life. So yeah. Corny, but yes, it's true. I lead like that.
There's no such thing. I'm cheesy. I'm corny.
I don't know if that's a cliche, but it's true. Like, I definitely see it all the time. So
no, yeah,
I think that's the best part in knowing that I was able to be a part of it.
Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful thing, and especially like because you get to see like with every meeting that you have, it's like you're seeing the changes.
Yeah.
Even if you're, sometimes you may backtrack.
Yeah.
With that person, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, it is. That's what all therapy is about. You don't get it all done in 1 day or 30 days or 6 months or a year. It takes time. Mm-hmm. And I would also say too is when the family starts to recognize it, and even the family is able to say thank you and really like appreciate, all the work that was put in with the client. So I think that's also rewarding as well.
Yeah, like what's having a support system, what does that mean to you? Like, does it have to necessarily just be your family, like your close kin, or like explain like a support system?
The support system can be therapy, people who are for substance meetings, other people that have gone through it, friendships, whoever is there for you genuinely and not judging you, but also kind of being like sometimes knows when to give you that tough love as well, because they really want the best for you. That's support. Not the person that's going to call to you and tell you it's going to be okay and enables you, but the person who wants to really see you make it out whatever you're going through. That is definitely a good support system.
Can be a little heartbreaking at times.
Yeah,
but you need tough love is very important.
Yeah, I appreciate all the friends that give me tough love.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, and I like people that are able to point out certain character flaws that I may have, because honestly, it makes me know that this is what I need to work on. And like I'm fine with not being perfect, because if I was, then I'd probably be a robot, and I'm not. So yeah, I'm not a robot.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be a human being if I was perfect.
I'd be like the AI robot.
Yeah, I'll be AI Sasha. So I don't want that.
I'd be like, but yeah, no, I think it's like, it's perfectly human to have those flaws.
Yeah.
And even like, and let's say, you moved on from the trauma. What's a good point? Because I don't know if like you can be completely healed from trauma, or is it just like there's a point in time where you're like, you know what, I've accepted it. Like, where do you see that?
That's when I feel like you're healed, when you accepted it. Mm-hmm. People look at healing in so many different ways. They're like, oh, when you could talk about your story and not cry. Not really. Sometimes I tell my story and I still want to shed a tear, or I still shed a tear. Actually, I'm not even gonna lie about that. But I think it's when you accept it for what it was and what it is, and just start to realize that that's not a part of you anymore, and that you're able to move forward and not carry that baggage, is I think when you've healed.
I 100% agree. Yeah. And I mean, like, I guess it's like time plus work plus just like learning to accept.
Yeah. And it's different traumas, like we said. Like, I mean, of course, over time, if you got into like a car accident or something, you're going to be fine. Like, I'm not in my car anymore, like shaking, So that's time for sure can heal that. But then you have, of course, the emotional and psychological baggage and stuff like that, that it takes a while to heal that. So that's kind of, like we talked about before, finding that closure for yourself and putting in a lot more work. But I think all trauma, the healing just looks different. To be honest, it just looks different for every person.
Yeah, like it's not like I totally agree with like I can tell my story without crying, or I can crack a joke about it, or I can, say that it did happen in the past, and I'm not like shaking in my boots about it.
Yeah, because it's true. Yeah, I would agree. I agree with that too. Like what you're saying. Yeah.
What is one thing that you wish people knew about therapy before starting?
I do not have the answer to your problems. That's off rip. This is not going to be like, I had one client tell me, oh, I thought this was going to be like when people do therapy with Sigmund Freud. No, I'm not Sigmund Freud.
I'm gonna sit you down there, I'm gonna hypnotize you, and you're gonna be healed in one go.
Not that. I don't have the answers. You don't need 20 therapy sessions to crack the code. You know, a lot of work starts with you and only you. And I'm just kind of the one that is helping you through your process, navigating it, putting in advice or suggestions when, you know, it's needed or wanted, stuff like that. And that's kind of how you get to where you need to get to. And sometimes it can be a year, 6 months, a month, or 2 months, whatever it is. But yeah.
Do you typically like give your clients like homework to work on?
Yes, I love homework assignments.
Yeah.
Especially for the ones that don't like to talk. But it's okay. That too. All I'm doing is holding their hand a little bit through their journey. But unfortunately, I'm not the one that helps heal them. You know, I will not heal them, but I'm not the one that has a solution to every problem.
Yeah, kind of. Would you say you kind of like shepherd or like at least help in the initial part?
Yeah,
of it?
We're just helping you navigate through it. Yeah. That's all. I'm just kind of like holding the boat a little bit, like what is it, like a captain,
or like when
co-captain.
When you got like the training wheels and like you're holding on.
Yeah,
and you're
literally
like,
that too, or like a co-pilot. Like when you start falling asleep, I'm like, pick up the blade. Yeah,
gotta go. let's revise.
And because therapy is also too, it's looked at with outside perspective, and as a therapist, you're able to look at each thing as a whole part. And you kind of can give an unbiased opinion to a lot of things. So oftentimes you can even help someone where, like even your own client, when they're wrong, to recognize when they're wrong, or to recognize when maybe the reason why that person acted this way or reacted a certain way was maybe due to this. Just helping them realize everything and rationalize certain situations. But yeah, that's pretty much what therapy is. Just kind of giving an outside opinion and hopefully helping you navigate to the perfect solution for you.
One question here, what's like, how has working at Rain impacted your career as a therapist? Like, is there any new therapeutic methods you've learned here? Is there anything kind of different you noticed working here compared to other places?
I would say this is my first time really working in like an intense mental health. I worked a lot more with substance abuse and mental health, but dual diagnosis. But this is a lot more like mental health, like where you're kind of like, sometimes some clients, like that's their baseline. Like there's nothing else that's gonna, you know, happen after that point. But sometimes that's okay because they're still able to kind of function in the way that they want to, and they've reached a goal. And it was kind of recognizing that part where it's like, okay, like I did help this client, because when I like for a while I kind of felt like I wasn't helping anybody, because I'm like, okay, like there's like maybe like the slightest change. And it's a lot different with substance abuse, primarily because substance abuse, you kind of just hit the core issue, which can be mental health as well. And then you get through that, and then you know they're going to stay clean and sober, you know, and you get those sobriety emails where they've been like, I've been sober for a year or 2 years or whatever. And then, you know, you did your job. But with mental health, sometimes it's about just making sure even a client's taking their medications, you know, and they're kind of just adhering to that, and doctor's appointments. And just like where maybe like sometimes with clients that are schizophrenic, kind of calming down like the voices so that way they're not harming themselves or trying to harm others. And I had to realize that that's also helping a client, you know, navigating through some of those diagnoses and stuff. But for a while I was like, okay, I don't really think I'm doing anything. So I would say this place has taught me how to really help people with severe mental health issues, and knowing that we are getting them to a certain point where they're able to either return back home to their families in a somewhat safe way, or even just kind of whatever they want to do in life, reach their goals or whatever. It doesn't have to be these huge things where it's like they're sober or whatever the case is, like what I was saying before, if that makes sense. But that, and then also doing groups, because I never did groups before and I like it.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of group therapy here at Centric. So
yes, a lot. Yeah. But it's not bad. That's really good. So I've actually found that I like to do that sometimes with some clients, especially when I see them individually and I see them interact with others. It's helped me to also see a different side of them as well. So I like that. But otherwise from that, it's been an interesting journey and I like it so far. So yeah.
That's good. I mean, like, I think wow, I'm like blanking out now.
It's okay.
I had it in here.
Maybe that response was too long. I apologize.
No.
I was just trying to put the words together because mental health is so different. It's a lot different.
Yeah, like it's exactly like you mentioned, like where substance abuse is almost like the end goal essentially is to make sure that that person is then sober and then living, a sober, healthier life than they were before. But mental health, like I think, the two questions that I have, and I'll just kind of like separate them. So my first question is mental health a lifelong journey, or is there a point in time where like I'm healed, I'm okay, like in substance abuse?
Well, it depends, because some diagnosis like bipolar disorder and schizophrenic or like schizoaffective disorders and stuff like that could be it's long term. Those diagnoses, I compare them to any like physical diagnosis like diabetes. You have to take your medications, and you have to make sure you're sticking to whatever regimen a psychiatrist puts you on, and therapy is very helpful as well. But if you don't do that, then you're just kind of right back to where you started sometimes, or worse. So, but I will say those diagnoses don't mean you can't have a normal life. I've seen people with bipolar disorder have their own businesses, literally they've been able to open up things, they have families, they have all this. Like these diagnoses don't cripple you. That's what a lot of people don't realize. And a lot of times some clients even here, they just want to live by their diagnosis. Like I have bipolar disorder. Like, okay, so okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that I have noticed like online, where it's like either some people will self-diagnose themselves, and then it's kind of like the trend where it's like, well, I have social anxiety, or like I have ADHD, or whatever the case may be. But but I think it's like definitely like advocating for like go and get help. Like
yes, these diagnoses don't have to cripple you. You're not disabled because of this. You're able to live a normal life. All of these things there's still makeups in our body, some of genetically. So like that's like me saying, because I have diabetes, that I'm gonna be like, okay, I can't do nothing. Like, no, I just have to eat properly, take my insulin, go to my doctor's appointments, and that's it. It's no different sometimes from a physical illness in a sense, because both are very, it can definitely, be very, like, what's the word, detrimental in a sense? Is that the word? Like severe?
Yeah, like I guess, like, of course, like if you have like severe, like with the diabetes, the diabetes then can go to other illnesses.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Both of them, they kind of play the same part in a sense. Yes, mentally, yes, it's hard. I'm not gonna sit here and act like, okay, like, oh, just get up from your bed and go live your life. Like, no, I'm not super Mrs. Positivity. Like, there's going to be challenges. But that's like anything. I have challenges in my diabetes sometimes where, like, it spikes up too much, or I have too much low blood sugars. Now I got to go change my whole insulin regimen. Sometimes medications are too expensive. Then I have to figure out other alternatives. It's constantly something that has to be changed. So it's the same thing almost like with the mental illness. And if you don't live by your mental illnesses, like people could become like the greatest people ever sometimes if they just don't feel like this is like a crippling disease, because it's not. I mean, Britney Spears has bipolar disorder, and look at Britney Spears, the before, not the
before,
after.
Yeah.
Kanye West, like they actually say, and I was sharing this in a group, that sometimes in your mental illnesses creates the most greatest things, projects. If you look at some of the artists in their depression, I think Van Gogh, he's one, and his depression is when he's made the best paintings, and that's what is in his depressive states. Some of the artists that may have other disorders, they make the best music when they're going through some stuff. And we're like, yes, rock on.
Yeah, we just get to experience the end piece they have, but we don't really get to go through the journey.
Exactly.
How they got
there. But it just comes to show you that, yes, there was a journey, but they made it out, and they were able to create a great masterpiece through that journey. So if people can look at it that way and not just look at it as, okay, my life is over. Don't get me wrong. Yes, there's some people where it may be like that because there's just like other diagnoses, where it can kind of like they can't get any better than where they're at, unfortunately. But there's most of them you can make something out of yourself. You don't have to allow it to just be like, this is my life and that's the end of it forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is mental health hereditary? Like, can it like genetically be passed through family?
Schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, yes, is one that I know. Those two I know for sure can be. Yeah.
So, can like, because I've heard from like, can addiction and depression, insomnia, those things as well.
Yeah. Depression, yeah, and insomnia. Yeah, I've heard of those. And addiction is tricky because sometimes the way you look at it with addiction, yes, some people do have addictive personality disorders. I know that. And a lot of times with people with addiction, I tell them just flip it around into the opposite way. So if you're addicted to drugs, go be addicted to something that's actually going to help you, whether that's the gym or opening up something. I don't know. Because I always tell people, if you really look at it, a lot of the people that own these treatment centers, they were addicts at one point in their life. And instead, they just flip all that energy. Instead of chasing the drug, they chase something better for their life, and it created a better life for them. So kind of flipping it. And I think that some things with addiction, because of the environment, people just get so used to that and they just kind of keep themselves in that, if that makes sense. So I don't know. That's a hard one to answer because that's just from what I see. I don't necessarily think it's hereditary, but I do think a lot of people use it as an excuse to use.
Yeah, because like there are some times where I feel like in my family, like I've had family members who do have mental health issues, and then I start to think, well, I have trauma, or I have this, or I have that. Is it because of my family, or is it just because of my own personal, what I went through, what I'm going through?
Probably. I look at depression and anxiety sometimes could be very environmental or circumstantial. Like we all have it. We all have depression sometimes. We all have anxiety sometimes. But there's a point where it can get like where you're clinically diagnosed. And that's usually coming down to the point where you don't want to live. When you get clinically diagnosed with depression, that's usually when those moments where you literally don't want to live anymore and you're on the brinks of suicide, constantly having suicidal ideations. So you've just lost like any last hope within you, you just lost it. Now that's when you're like, okay, you need to come get some help, because of course we don't want anybody to do that, and your life is worth living, but you don't recognize that. And there are like certain things in the brain, like chemical imbalances and stuff like that, I've learned because I've had some experience working with TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulus treatment. So like your left side of the brain is depression, the right is anxiety, and there are some parts where you can like they use the thing to wake up certain parts of the brain, and it's like you get this MRI and then they put the electric thing there, and it does help. I've seen it helps a lot. So some things can play, like little things that it can go deeper into, I'm sure, like I guess like with someone's makeup in their body, I guess you could say like that. But some are just kind of like, okay, like they're not really hereditary.
Yeah. Or like you mentioned, where it's like the chemical makeup of your brain.
Yeah.
Like we do talk a lot about that with depression and anxiety, where some people are just, I guess, predisposed to have a little bit more of a depressive state rather than, I guess, a normal neurotypical baseline.
Yeah, that is true. And that's why some people, you just have to either work harder than others, unfortunately, but that's just like anything. It's just like if you want like a really nice body, like the first thing they say is your body, don't use something on Instagram that's unrealistic, because that's not your genetically how your body is. Like you may get some different result that fits you. So that's how kind of when you look at mental health too, like sometimes you have to put in a little bit extra work than others. You may get a different result than others. Sometimes it may take you a little bit longer than others, but that doesn't mean that you can't make it out, or you won't be able to reach a certain part in your life where you feel like, okay. Yeah.
But we're back at the baseline.
Yes.
Your own personal baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, I have one more question for you. Would be, what does self-care mean to you as a therapist who holds a safe space for others' pain every day?
Oh, that one is good. Because and that goes back, I would say especially working here because of the mental health. It could be a lot some days. But I've learned to kind of realize work is work. And of course I care, but also knowing how to hold that emotional boundary, if that makes sense, to not just know like I can only do what I can do here, you know. And then just kind of making sure I spend a lot of time with family, friends. Of course, I like to travel, so anytime I get a day off, I'm out. Definitely. I'm recharging. So, and you know, the beach, just doing things to kind of separate that. And it's taken kind of a while because there's been times where I've been drained like really bad, and it's taken a toll on me mentally to the point where like your body just shuts down. But I feel like those little things, and then setting time for myself too. Like I like to go out to eat by myself sometimes, or just stay at home watching a movie, cooking. Like yesterday after work, I just like made this huge dinner for my family, and I'm just watching a movie, enjoying myself, and I'm having a good time. I'm not worried about work. The work is tomorrow, and I feel like little things. It's little things that just kind of, I guess, fill that void a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because self-care is important for literally everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that also just being someone who does take in a lot of like that emotional, or not necessarily you absorbing the emotional baggage, but just listening to it and being in, you know, that trying to create that space for others. But then, like, you know, you also have to protect yourself.
Yeah, a lot of prayer with that too. Definitely, we're asking the Lord for strength every day.
Yeah. So again, not all heroes wear capes, honestly.
No, but yeah, I would say those are my main things. It's just kind of family, prayer, you know, recharging myself on the weekends in different ways. You know, where like I go to church, I got also involved in like groups myself, like, you know, just things that I just not forgetting about me. Because I'm also, and I have a therapist as well. So that too.
Therapists have therapists.
Yes, I have a therapist. Sometimes it's a lot about work. Sometimes it's about personal issues. Mm-hmm. So definitely I would say those are the things that help me for right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I can hope to gain more coping skills. I also take the same advice I give others sometimes. So I think that also helps too.
Absolutely. Practicing what you preach.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So, yeah. All right.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, like, again, with everything that you do, it's like, yeah, it's like definitely just like giving all that energy back to yourself as well. That's super, super important. I mean, even myself, like, I didn't think about those things before. I guess I'm a reformed people pleaser.
Oh, that too. I've been there.
But learning to kind of give myself back, and then being like, no, like I need to. Like the airplane, the example where it's like put your mask on before you can like help anybody else.
Yeah, literally, that's a good one. And you know, it takes a while, and I didn't learn that until like recently too. That like I just like you have to date yourself sometimes and not always run to people please, because I found myself in predicaments, especially with friendships, I would say, where I'm trying to people please, and I didn't even realize I was people pleasing. Until it's like every time I'm constantly around these people, I'm leaving like, what the heck? Why did I just do that? Or I don't feel like whole, or I feel like a part of me was taken, but my cup is also not getting filled. Like, it's just, I had like that battle a lot in the beginning of this year. And I was like, honestly, and it's little things like me constantly reaching out to people, me saying, let's hang out or let's do this. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? And then I do it, and then I just still feel empty after. I'm like, I need to stop. So I just realized that I just find things that I enjoy for myself. And if you don't like it, bye-bye.
100% agree. Honestly, the solo dating thing has been like, I feel like I'm a very shy person. So a lot of the times I've always thought to myself, no, I need to be like with somebody else to go anywhere. Like I mean, at one point in my life, it was like, I just to go to the grocery store, like I had to be with somebody. And then like going and doing like little things on my own, I started to like, you know, build that confidence.
Yeah.
And now I solo travel.
I want to do that. I only haven't solo traveled yet because I'm a girl and I'm kind of small. So
the way that I found it was through like agencies, kind of.
Oh yes, I want to do that. I've been looking into that. But you know, another thing too is like sometimes we say we're shy, but we're not really shy. We just haven't built the confidence yet. And what I would tell myself a lot is when I go somewhere by myself, like, for one, I'm very, like, I don't like to wait for anybody. And I feel like me waiting for somebody all the time or just doing things with people, I realize it changes my experience. So I would talk to myself, like, while I'm out and kind of asking myself, like, how do I feel with this? Like, you know, like, does this feel weird? Like, do I like it? Do I not like it? What would it feel like if someone else was here? You know, what has it felt like when someone else is there in the past? Like, you kind of, like, ask yourself these questions. And I start to realize that me being here by myself, I get to do whatever I want. You know, like, I don't have to compromise where I want to eat, especially eating, because I like to eat. I don't have to compromise where I want to go, where I want to eat, what the time is. I get to sit here as long as I want. I can, or as short as I want. You know, I get to look at my phone, put the phone down, people watch a little bit if I want. You know, nothing feels awkward. And I started to realize that, and I started enjoying doing it. Because I used to be like that too. Like, I can't go to the mall by myself. I can't go to the store by myself. I can't eat by myself. I felt like that was so weird, you know, because I'm like, oh, people probably think I'm so lonely. Yeah. And I started to always think, like, what do people think? But I've never asked, what do I think of this? And once I started asking myself what I think of this, I was like, I actually like it. And now I'm like, I enjoy myself a lot more.
What are your, like, let's say, what are your, like, top 3, like, favorite solo date, like, places you like to go to?
Eating anywhere sushi, because I love sushi. Sometimes not all everybody likes sushi. I like the sushi. I love taking myself, of course, like every girl. It's like every store, Marshall's, Ross, the mall, whatever, little shopping stuff.
That's the holy grail.
I love that. Or just like going to the pool. I don't think I've been on the beach by myself, like walking, you know, stuff like that. But a lot of outdoor stuff I would do, and I think that's fun. And a lot of eating out. I like that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm absolutely with the food. I'm such a foodie. I feel like my wallet always cries when I see a new restaurant.
Like any self-care, getting my nails, my hair done. Yeah. Just like, I just feel like anything I'm doing for myself, it makes me happy. So I like that.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Yeah, but I've just learned that this year, so it takes a while.
Same. So I guess, yeah, so now with the closing statement, what would you say to someone who is seeking treatment right now? And if you want to just like look into the camera and just kind of like speak to the audience.
I would say if you're seeking treatment, don't be scared. And, you know, whatever resources that you need, all treatment centers have, especially at Rain Residential. I'm not saying that because I work here. But the main thing is just don't be scared to take that next step. You know, it's definitely a hard step to take, but it's definitely worth it at the end of the day. So just, if you feel like you really need the help, just come and get it. And I promise you, you will never regret it. So, yeah.
And if you're here to Rain, Sasha
will be your therapist. We'll cry and we'll laugh. And some screams sometimes. Yeah. I've had some clients scream.
You gotta let it out, right?
Let it out.
Let it out.
Let it out. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
I think this was great. It was very lovely. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we're just gonna be like, done.